were an established art curator in Sydney with your own very successful gallery, and you decided to pack that all in and move up to Newcastle, or move back to Newcastle. Can you tell us a bit about what you did in Sydney?
So I had the opportunity after doing a Bachelor of Fine Arts at National Art School, which was really setting me up to be a sculptor. And then I travelled, and I realised after working in the sculpture foundry in the Highlands of Scotland that I was putting my eggs in a really difficult basket, and to be an artist full time and a sculptor in the world was just such a far-fetched thing, and hats off to all those sculptors out there making a living, right?
Yeah.
So I actually found I had the opportunity when I came back from overseas, for 2.5 years of travelling and trying to further myself as an artist, and I was only 21. I had the opportunity to run an art gallery in a space in the centre of Sydney, Surrey Hills, and I thought, oh, I have better chances running an art gallery than being a sculptor in Sydney. I can't see any jobs for a sculptor in the paper. So I thought, yeah, that's all right, I'll make that work. And so I printed business cards and I handed them out, and then I found artists. And then I organised the show. So it was really bold and brash, and but you know, it was a very honest path.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anyone's influences. I did just follow my gut instinct and work with people that I liked and trusted and valued their art, even though I was quite young. And I found, only by looking back, that was one of my strengths.
Yeah.
So being so naive and just being so honest with yourself and not being clouded by the aggressiveness of Sydney, and all my competitors were really big names like you know, and then I found out their business plans, and they weren't running a business like me. They were you know, they had all these different types of businesses, and I ran it very
Fingers
honestly.
in lots of different pies. And
yeah, they were funded by something or other, an oil rig or something random. So I really just bought and sold art that I thought was fabulous. And then I realised that wasn't normal.
Do you think a lot of people treat careers in the arts as a hobby and don't necessarily take it seriously, leaving other people who do really have a passion for it to sort of there to struggle?
Well, I've realised over time and some art market research in London and the US that the traditional role of what I thought was a gallery and business plan of earning money from art and supporting artists was really just, it wasn't a practical ideology, and maybe it never really existed, I'm not sure, but that's what I ran for quite some time. So yeah, I found that you're either government funded, not for profit, I don't even understand the concept, because you're getting an income, and then, or you're funded by another business that's doing very well, and you're running at $1 million loss a year. And I just didn't fit any of that. So I just did my own business, found out I can't really compete with the running at $1 million loss a year business plan.
You wouldn't want to, would you?
Well, I don't have an oil rig propping me up, and another gallery I found was being propped up by crabbing. You know, it's really ridiculous, like a crabbing business. The business that runs all the deep sea crabs, and then they put $1 million or so into the gallery to run it. Whereas I actually just made money from selling art. I thought that was what everyone did, except...
Probably the purest form. Now,
yeah, I realised I was really successful.
At that stage, did you have a particular focus, a particular type of art that you were going for? Did you discover that Indigenous art was your thing early on?
Yeah, I did. That was a little tricky trot, though, as all my life seems to pan out. So it was a bit of a no-brainer to go back to my art community that I was educated in. So the National Art School, I went back to the students and offered the school space, and then selected some artists. I found that the more green an artist is in business, they don't realise what galleries offer artists, like that they are putting you up on they're advertising for you, and they're promoting you, and they're working, and they're lifting your level of art. And so I found that the artists really didn't. They're almost told it's an us and them thing, and the gallery is against you and trying to rip you off. And so I found it really difficult dealing with young or inexperienced artists. And so I had a little ageist rule, or that I decided to only deal with artists over 40 years old because I found the young ones really, really, I know I was really young myself, but I found them really arrogant about their craft, and they were like, I want lilies here, and my art's about purity, I'm 24.
Did that make it difficult?
And I found that really hard, because I didn't know how to let them down lightly, or say, no one knows who you are, we've got to build a profile for you. You can't just invite your mum and dad's friends, which is, so and then I got invited out bush. I did have some success with the artists I chose, with the more mature aged artists, and they really did respect that I was running a business and it was difficult, and to sell art is the hardest thing to sell in the world, really, because it's not something you need every day. So I enjoyed that, but I did get invited out bush, and I was blown away by two things. First, the humble nature of the artists out bush compared with my city artists, and also the accessibility to all the artists, at your selection. So I could choose an 18-year-old girl that's doing something really interesting and subtle, or I could actually exhibit her alongside Ronnie Japp and Jimpa that's shown in the Louvre. I found that really strange, that the accessibility to the artist was really open, and these and then I was really, I think there's such a touristy way that these artists have been portrayed. I don't think they've been really properly curated in a lot of places, and they haven't been seen for what they really are, or properly selected and put next to each other, or pitched, or just held really in this fine arts world, pitched really high, so that they were, a lot of the art was just found on top of each other in layers, and people would just look through it like a pile, and it felt like a bargain basement thing. And I just thought I could do that so much better and so much more respectfully, and I wanted people to have an insight into these people's lives and their struggles and what they were passionate about, and I just felt there's a gap there.
Yeah, it would be fair to say that there is a bit of a sort of a gap in people's knowledge about Indigenous peoples of this country, and probably a lot of other countries too. So how do you redress that gap? What can you do? What can we do as a culture to make people more aware of the breadth of cultures that are in fact included under that one sort of label in this country, sort of the Aboriginal label? There's in fact hundreds of cultures and languages, aren't there?
So there are about, what we know is there are about 260 languages. In those languages there are dialects. So looking at the map of Australia originally is really more like looking at a map of Europe. The diversity of culture and language, and the terrain, having a mountainous country or a Lake District country or a desert country really changes the culture and the mythology and the stories and the ways of life, obviously, of the people. So that is very diverse. And then the ranges of art is so diverse.
Yeah.
So I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm discovering things that I don't think are really readily shared and talked about, and especially talked about in an asset. What I really think Australia, I feel like, has missed a little bit boat on, that I feel like the federal government is looking at Indigenous Australia as a liability rather than an asset. I just think we have so much more to value from these people as a cultural asset.
One of the things that you mentioned to me that you do see a lot in the art world is that Indigenous art doesn't really sell very well in Australia, yet it goes overseas, and it feels like Australians are missing the boat. People are paying huge sums of money for pieces that people sort of just pass up in Australia.
Yeah, well, I think a lot is our exposure. I think that, 90% of the art that leaves the country is Indigenous. And given we've only got, 2.5%, 3% of the population, let's say, be generous, with 3% of the population is Indigenous, not all of those people are artists. So it's pretty extraordinary. And I just think we have more of a moral, I think we should care about our statistics a little more. 80% of the jail population are Indigenous. And then people say in the statistics, my husband's an Indigenous man and he's in social work. And so we speak a lot about these sorts of statistics, and he has said to me, 80%, I'm throwing numbers around, 80% of the people in jail have been victims of, all this abuse. And I think we should care about that and reflect on it and not apply maybe mission mentality on it, but reflect on maybe the leaders of the country and or the assets that this culture has to offer, and propel that a little more and be really put on the pedestal and just know more about all the amazing world first these people did actually achieve.
Do you think it's a better way to teach people, rather than to put them on a pedestal and say they're a cause that needs help, to actually educate people about them and get people interested in the culture and interested in their art and music?
I find the French know a lot more about Aboriginal art than an Australian. That's what I found. So they value the art and the culture, I think, more than the average Australian. And they know more. And they're not art people, they just have a value. I think it's taught in their education system to value art and culture and look to cultures and as an aesthetic beauty, and they're very confident. The normal layman French person is confident looking at this art, even though they don't know, the name or the title or whatever, Jukabra, the Dreaming. They're confident, they can see it and they value it. And I worry about Australia because I just think that we don't know what we've got.
Yeah, and not just the French, but there's an exhibition of some of your collection on in Seattle. Is that correct right now?
Yeah. So when I knew I was in transient mode, having my second baby, and I knew I couldn't keep up the gallery in Sydney, being a mother. So, and I didn't want to put it in storage. That would just be against my whole vision of art. It should be out, sharing, even though it was a risk, and people told me it's probably not something you do. Pregnant with my second bubba, I said to my husband, I really think I should sow some art seeds internationally. And he looked at me and bless him, he said, oh, you better do it now then. Okay, so I did. I managed to sell a couple of works and pay for my ticket, and with barely any research, because I knew research wouldn't matter. What mattered was what happens face to face. I knew emails and things. I don't even my emails half the time. So, you know, if I got an email from someone saying I'm going to come to Australia with a roll of paintings on my shoulder, would you be happy to meet me? I'd probably be a bit sus. But so I just went to New York, Brooklyn, and New Jersey, and then I went to Seattle, and then I went to San Fran with a roll of paintings on my shoulder. I printed a flashy little catalogue of what I'm all about, and just hope in my pocket and a pregnant tummy. I did secure a really great partnership in a Seattle gallery which is all about cross-cultural, and that was very rare. In America, they don't do much cross-the-border art dealings. So I was very grateful to secure that, and I didn't realise that until I was there. And I learned a lot, and I sold a few paintings on the way to an art curator in art consultants in San Fran, which is apparently one of the biggest ones. And so I arranged a year later for 40 artworks to go to Seattle, which is bulk of my collection that I've built up over time and own. And they're going to be there, and we went over there just as we moved to Newcastle. We were here for 5 weeks trying to settle in, and then we went to America for 5 weeks to do talks with my husband and children, and then they keep the artworks for 3 years and promote them and try and have a cross-cultural
pretty
relationship.
incredible feat to do while you're pregnant and a bit transient between what you're doing. Anne is not a lazy person by any means of the word. Now, not only that, so you've been to Seattle, you've shopped art around there, you've also then relocated yourself from Sydney to Newcastle. You're trying your own art. Yep. You're working with kids, and you're doing wearable art as well.
Yeah, so I read in this book that, you know, perhaps you should, you know, it is, I realise I am in a niche, you know, Indigenous, largely abstract art, pretty pricey. Are you going to all love me? I'm not sure. But I do have other skills, and I thought, well, maybe there's a niche for, maybe I should diversify a little on my new website. So I'm building a new website. I tried to have it ready for tonight, but it's still got some Latin on it, strangely. My website guy put on there just to fill the gap.
All websites
why
need a bit
it's
of
Latin. I said, take it off. Take the Latin off. But tonight, please. So I'm diversifying. I reached back into my sketchbooks to try and create a range of very accessible, beautiful paintings that are just about beauty and supposed to lighten up your day. This one is one of them. It's not a painting, sorry. It's a digital, it's put together digitally by a watercolour and a photograph of a tree that I found in Centennial Park, heavy with buds, and it's called Spring Rhythm. And they really are just about trying to make your home more beautiful and lift your spirits in the morning, having coffee and toast. Like, it's light-hearted art, but it's real art. And so I'm doing a limited edition, just keeping it simple and keeping myself creative because I don't want to rest on my laurels.
And we've also got some pieces here, don't we?
So this is from my travels when I was out in Madrid, just losing myself in someone else's language. And there's just a little detail I saw in Madrid that I just thought it was exquisite iron lace. It was just so sweet, and this was little iron lace too, and so the detail, I was just like, my gosh, someone's gone to a lot of trouble to make that fence that's repeated along there, and I'm really enjoying it, eating my sandwich or whatever my Spanish sandwich was. And so I came back over 2 days and drew it in pencil, and then I've just put a cloud, some sort of cloud image behind it to create a little bit of light and depth. But it's just it's sort of memento, travel memento turned into pleasing art. Nothing too, heavy, I guess. So this here is one of my more traditional artworks that I've collected, Mirrapinti Rock Hole, and it's all about finding water in the middle of the desert. That will keep you alive if you know where to look. This is a little bitty ghost moth from my husband. He's done another version of this that's so much more detailed than this one, believe it or not. So we're just pulling out our talents here. I think Newcastle's a great place to relax a little bit and look at your sketchbooks and look at yourself and be yourself a little bit more, because Sydney we were just chasing our tail living, and it was not enjoyable, and so we are really glad to move here and look inwards a little and be ourselves.
Let the lifestyle sort of inspire you a bit.
Yeah, so bitty ghost moth. My husband incorporates his language. At one stage there was only 20 speakers left, but now it's being taught in primary schools.
That's fantastic.
And he's got a wearable art business in Olive Tree. So you'll find him out at Olive Tree sweating it out, selling his wares. But he loves that. He loves talking to people about his culture. He loves it. It's certainly a lot more than social work.
I can imagine. It's a lot more fun creating.
Yeah.
So, well, Anne, thank you so much. Now, before we say goodbye to Anne, it's worth noting that there are some artworks dotted around, and there's some.
Wind out my prop.
Oh yeah, wind out your prop. What's this for? I'm intrigued. This wasn't in the rehearsal. Okay, I'll keep talking. So while Anne's winding out her prop, if you visit the counter over the back corner of the room, there's a video playing, and it's all about Anne's journeys out into the bush. So definitely check that out. Anne will give you a little bit of a rundown of what that's about later on, if you'd like to take a look at that. Other than that, we're going to check out what's going on here. That always happens, doesn't it? Just when it always happens to my headphones.
No, look up.
There we go.
So I don't really visualize numbers. I'm not a numbers person. What I just wanted to illustrate here was this white cord I measured out on the kitchen floor. My kitchen floor isn't this long, but I've measured out 60,000 years, and this little strip of blue is how long we've been here. And I just want to end on, shouldn't we learn from this? Shouldn't we learn from this survival and the achievements, and shouldn't we reflect on that? And I just think that's just worth, we've lost so many insects, we've lost so many creatures, and we've lost languages. And I just think, rather than worry about how good our plumbing is now or something, shouldn't we, learn from these people that have lived so long and achieved and been the first map makers in the world and all that. So I just wanted to give that sort of diagram.
That's a fantastic demonstration. Ann Snell, everybody.